Good afternoon. The things we're going to talk about are pretty sensitive. I hope we don't scare anyone to death and have you have nightmares. But when you think of the serial killer, you often think of someone who is drooling, who looks like a killer, who talks like a killer, and is very much like Hannibal Lecter. You know, he's probably the serial killer we think of the most, and he is fantastic in that. As we do this, if we get talking too softly, just kind of wave. I think with the mic it works a lot better. For any of you who haven't been to one of my workshops, my background is as a psychologist, and I started with this whole project by doing evaluation on Ted Bundy. And so I got to know him quite well, and got a book coming out real soon, right? Yeah, that's my agent here, on him. It's interesting to talk to a serial killer because you're thinking you're going to get someone really strange. Now, one time after we had apprehended Ted, he'd been apprehended and he came out of the prison, and I did an evaluation for the court, and he got given a hard number and he did some time in prison. Then he tried to escape, and then we gave him up to Colorado to try him on the Karen Campbell homicide, and he escaped. And after he escaped, he called me and just wanted to chat. For any of you who have heard this, I apologize, but this is generally what you're going to hear when you talk to a serial killer.
You know, I've given it a great deal of thought. I've been moved from Aspen. I've been in the Aspen, Pickett County Jail, which is in Aspen, from January 31st until April the 11th. It's just 73 days. I have all this memorized, you know. And in Aspen, I was an open affair. The jail was very small.
Okay, one thing. What did it mean to you when he says, I have all of this memorized? You know? This is a guy that knows what he's doing. He's always thinking. He's always planning. He's always contemplating what he's going to do and the reasons why he's going to do it. So as he says that, he talks about the size of the cell, and he knows everything about where he's at. And there's a real key there.
It's 4, 5, 6, 7 cells, you know, and all the doors are open all the time. The place has been built in 1887. But it was just, you know, here is where I could come out, we could relate, talk to other prisoners, go in their cells. You know, something like the state prisons, not like that, but like the main line. And then they moved me down here. This is prior to the escape, because I was a security risk, and they put me in a 6 by 12 by 8 foot high cell and ordered no one to speak to me. And quite frankly, that's why I decided to represent myself. At least I have to, you know, have to go to the library. You know, all these situations where, you know, concrete, solid steel door with a little window and food slot. I mean, this was worse than the hole. Honestly, Al, this was worse than the hole. Yeah. In Max, because there you can at least talk to people and see people. And it's worse than Max because they never let me out for exercise except the 6 days I was out on escape since the 11th of April. So. This was building up. And I had, over the months, I had noticed a number of opportunities to just walk right out of the courthouse. But I didn't know quite how to put it all together. I was, as you said, I was very concerned about what people would think. And I didn't, you know, people say, would you afraid someone would shoot you or something? I said, no, it was one of the lower fears in my hierarchy of fears. Yeah. But I don't know, that day I came there and I thought a great deal about about escape, and I didn't know if I had the guts to do it, quite frankly. And the guard went outside for a smoke, and there was not one person in the whole courtroom. You have to see the courthouse in Aspen to understand. The windows were open, and the fresh air was blowing through, and the sky was blue. And I said, I'm ready to go. And I walked the window and jumped out.
Yeah.
And I started chugging.
Okay, then it goes on from there. But when you hear that, to me it sounds like a friend talking about an experience with another friend, doesn't it? You wouldn't think that this is a serial killer. You wouldn't think that this is a person who is driven, who has two very distinct personalities, even though he's not a multiple personality. This is a person that when the one personality, the hidden part, is triggered, it comes out, and he dissociates to a degree until he commits his crime. Then after the crime, when the victim is, well, not so much when the victim is dead, because there are things that happen after the victim is dead. You know, and we're going to get into that. But there's a lot of dynamics that go on here. But briefly, there are stages a person goes through to get to this part. First of all is the vulnerability stage. Something happens and it makes a person vulnerable for developing a personality of a killer. But it's not anything that's really different from what most people experience. It's just the way they respond to it, they react to it, the decisions they make. And the decisions that Ted made was he would get into fantasy and memorize these political speeches and all of this. The decision that Wesley Dodd made in his situation where a younger brother was born, he felt displaced, he got into all of this fantasy, you know. The decision Arthur Bishop made was basically the same thing, getting into all of this fantasy. And fantasy is not bad, it's just what it can lead to if it's not handled right. So stage 2 is they try to do something to make life worthwhile and everything starts going wrong. With Ted, he didn't have the friends he wanted. He felt he was left out. With Arthur Bishop, he wasn't interested in girls. He was interested in school, and he found himself getting interested in kids. With Wesley Dodd, he felt like he was a nobody. He was short. He was undeveloped, and he was very embarrassed in the showers. And he didn't want to take showers with the other kids after sports, and he got into music. But each of them started developing these fantasies. And as they got more and more involved, they got into their early teens and got to the point of starting the dating and interest in girls, they didn't have that. And so they pulled back even more. Ted wanted it, but nobody really wanted him, and he was just so quiet, withdrawn. He was just Ted, said one lady I talked to. He was just there, that's all there was to it. But as they pull back, then they get even more involved into that which is working. And then they have these hero fantasies, and as they start getting turned down by girls, the hero fantasies get turned into more of I will take you fantasies. At first they're general fantasies, but when they think about dating, they start putting the face of the person they're interested in into the fantasy. Now the person is incorporated in them. So it gets more and more and more until they get to a point where they are actually two people. I imagine there are actually two